Boundless Spirit, pushing the limits of talk radio with Charlene Springer.
Welcome to Boundless Spirit Radio with Charlene Springer. And wow, another exciting interview today. We get to meet the coolest people here on this show, I swear. And our guest today, Sven Carlson, and he is coming from Crystal Healing Mountains, and from the Crystal Healing Mountains, literally. And he is an intuitive Reiki master, NLP practitioner. He also does craniosacral therapy, rebirthing, and something which I would like to know more about, advanced structural integration. That's something I'd definitely like to learn more about. So welcome, Sven. How are you today?
Oh, very good. Thank you. And thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, yes. Oh, I can't wait. So now this is where we get to play a little bit. You've been, and one of the things that you've done is you've done Rolfing for like 25 years, you said, no?
Yes, Rolfing, I can give you a brief scenario of what it involves. First of all, it's holistic, hands-on. You might say it's a combination of psychotherapy, chiropractic, massage. The goal of Rolfing is working with what's known as the myofascial system or connective tissue. And there's what's called the recipe, which consists of 10 sessions. Now, most people, they would come to Rolfing because, first of all, they've tried everything else, because Rolfing has this reputation of being very painful. But the goal of Rolfing is simply structural alignment. And as a result of this, pains, aches, any type of issue, actually, it doesn't matter how long you've had it. There's a way that Rolfing can address it so that once it goes or disappears, it's permanent. This is what makes Rolfing different from other modalities. If somebody was to show up with, let's say, neck pain or back pain, it's easy to do some type of massage work and make it feel better. There's usually a tendency for it to come back. Now with Rolfing, it takes about 5 years of education, experience. But with Rolfing, if somebody comes and they have a complaint, the issue that we would want to address as Rolfers is what's the cause? What's the cause of the complaint? Because once we address the cause, then the complaint will disappear and it won't come back. So that's one of the great benefits of Rolfing.
Mm-hmm. And you also do a couple other modalities, hands-on modalities like craniosacral therapy and rebirthers. But rebirther is more emotional, not so much hands-on.
Yes, rebirthing and conscious connected breathing is another term for it. A lot of people don't like the term rebirthing because they think it has to do with being reborn, which is not really correct. But what happened is, I've studied a number of different modalities in addition to the ones you've mentioned, and always in search of what it is that's in the subconscious mind that might be presenting some type of block or obstacle. Now, breath work is extremely powerful. So what happened and how I stumbled across this was I lived in a small town back then, Boulder, Colorado, and I would take people through the 10 series of Rolfing. And then I would see them, like crossing the street in front of me, maybe 6 months later. And I would notice that some of the results of the 10 series had not held. And so this began my fascination with the subconscious mind. What is it that's being missed? Because if they're going back, obviously there's a piece of something that has not been addressed. So in going through quite a variety of different modalities, I came across the breath work. And the breath work is a way to quiet the conscious thinking mind, which actually kind of messes a lot of us up. So it opens up the subconscious mind for affirmations or for planting a seed. And so also the vast majority of people, especially, my age, my 60s, when we were actually delivered, it was quite violent, with the cutting of the umbilical cord and a nice slap to get us to breathe. So it sets up a pattern for a lot of people that they develop the tendency to take in just enough air to survive, and then they put it out. They don't take a nice, slow, deep breath. So in addition to access to the subconscious mind, it's also a way to teach people to breathe in a very nice, comfortable, relaxed way. And the example I like to give, if you ever see somebody giving a big sigh, well, that's if you ever are in an argument or you're having anxiety, I can guarantee that you're barely breathing. And so when you begin to be able to recognize this and you say, whoa, hey, let's slow down, let's take a nice breath, it centers the system. So all breath work is good, and there's many different variations. So it's just something that, like a lot of rolfers who've done it the length of time that I have, we learn other modalities, and, when we kind of mix them in, with our own personal experience, always because, rolfing, when we work with people, they're individuals. It's not everybody gets the same deal. Everybody has slightly different issues, slightly different wants or needs or desires. And so, with a bigger bag of tools, then, we're able to address it in a more successful fashion.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of birthing, you also do something called craniosacral therapy. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, back in the 80s, when I first got rolfed, it was back in the days where it earned the reputation that it still has to this day, and that's that it's extremely painful. Now, when I went through the 10 series, it was very painful, and however, I was really in bad shape from a number of surgeries. And so for me, even though it was painful, it was extremely beneficial. But I thought most people would really have to have a need, like I did myself, to go through it. So I thought, I'm going to learn craniosacral therapy. And that's working with basically the cerebrospinal fluid, which is inside the skull and then down the spinal cord. And it's a very subtle light work, very effective, and but incredibly on the opposite side of the coin than rolfing. I thought, I'm going to learn this modality. Back then it was with a school called Upledger. He's now passed over. I'm going to learn this modality, and then I'm going to go to school to become a rolfer. And I'm going to learn my own method. I'm going to combine these things. So that, I'm going to come up with my own new thing. So I went ahead and I did the cranial work. And then when I got to Boulder and to go to school to become a rolfer, I learned that not all rolfing was the way that I had experienced it. And so I went ahead and I learned from two masters, two world masters. And one was the old school, which was very deep and very challenging. And the other one was a magician. And he had a very light touch, but yet he would yield the same results. So I learned from both, and then, of course, did my own combination, and, was very successful with it. So it worked out very well.
I need to try that light touch rolfing because I've had the other rolfing, and it does hurt.
Yeah. I believe in no pain. I believe in working in rolfing what I call the gentle edge. And that means we just work right up to where you think you're just about there, and then that's it. There's no need to clench your fist or because I think that's just I think it's traumatizing, and there's a good number of Rolfers who think and feel the same way. And there are still some who do the old school, because there are some people who do enjoy that. But most people I work with, no, they prefer the lighter touch.
Yeah. So now we go from the physical, because we talked about all the hands-on modalities, and then in turn you've learned also NLP, which is a different type of modality. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, NLP, I've studied NLP. I've never actually done official courses, but I've read a lot of books. Mm-hmm. Because for me, the verbiage that we use is absolutely fascinating. And so in the way that we speak, which is, of course, very specific in dowsing, that's what makes it so effective. And the way that we self-talk, for me, is of all importance. And way back in the 80s, when I was a firefighter, paramedic, the sudden infant death syndrome to make itself known in the papers. Well, I was always fascinated with the psychological aspects of what's called first responders. Now, first responders are the police or fire or medics who basically are the first people on scene. Now, the words that, and you know, we show up, we're in uniform, we all got badges, it can be very intimidating. Now, what's important about this is that when people are in shock, and now we're going back to the subconscious mind, when the person's in shock, their subconscious mind is open, and the conscious mind is basically shut down. The words that we say will be in this person's mind for the rest of their life.
Wow.
So, and I've done this myself, unfortunately. But we walk in to a house, and there's a SIDS baby in the crib, and it could be the mother, it could be a caretaker. And I would say to the caretaker, when's the last time you saw your baby? And those simple words would immediately instill guilt. I should check the baby earlier. And instead, I went to the very first program of this nature in LA County, and it was to learn verbiage of first responders. A simple change of words to tell me about your baby. And then there's no guilt. And so NLP is near and dear to my heart. And so when we're teaching dowsing, what takes people some time, some practice, and some experience is to learn how specifically to use our words. Because the clearer and the more specific we are with what it is that we're saying, then we get the results that we're hoping for.
That's really cool. Because people don't realize how words really hurt you. I mean, really, really hurt you. So now, with this program, with NLP, what have you found in working with people? What are some of the things that can come up that they can use NLP for?
Well, clearer communication, and particularly with dowsing, it's a way to talk with people without instilling any type of guilt. It's a way not only to help them understand where you're coming from in a clear fashion, but it helps you learn to be able to express what it is that you want to share in a very, we can say, nonviolent way. And so the end result, of course, is how effective we are with that. So, you know, as I said before, in dowsing, this is what takes more practice and experience than just about anything else, because it sounds really simple. We're teaching a course, like to ask a question in a certain way. And everybody sits there and goes, yeah, I got that. But then when they're on their own and they're back in their house and they sit down to start asking some questions, they realize, it takes a little more practice than you think. So, Susan Gash and myself in our teaching and the way we live, for us, NLP is such just a normal way of life. Like, we don't even really talk about NLP. That's just how we are. That's just how we talk. That's just how we live.
Before we go on to dowsing, I really wanted to hear more about structural integration.
Okay. Now, let's start with what's called the recipe. Now, the recipe consists of 10 sessions. So basically what happens is a person will show up. Now, the fun thing about Rolfing is people will come for just about any reason that you can possibly imagine. 90%, they come to Rolfing because they have pain, post-surgical, knee, back, neck, whatever. But the other 10%, they might have some type of psychological issue. And somehow they know that. They might have a history of just consciously. Now, Rolfing will have a tendency in most people to bring these to the surface, because our bodies, our myofascial system, can develop what one of the names can be an energy cyst. Let's say we fell out of the tree when we were 5 years old and we hurt our hip. Now, we weren't supposed to be climbing the tree. If we tell our mother that we hurt our hip, we're going to get in trouble because we climbed the tree. And this is an actual case I had not long ago. And so I'm working with this guy, and we get to his hip, and all of a sudden, this memory flashes, and he shares this story with me. Now, this would be an area where he closed off the energy from this event, from this memory. And that takes energy to do. This is one of the benefits of what Rolfing releases. Now, the first 3 sessions of the 10 series are what's called superficial. So basically, the first session is about breath work. It's about our chest, our arms, our neck, our back, our IT bands in the leg, our hamstrings. These are all related to taking a breath. The second session is simply the feet and the deep erectors along the spine. And the third session is the sides of the body, basically from the knees to the head. This is all superficial. Now, what superficial means is in doing this work, I'm not thinking about the skeletal structure of the client. I'm just thinking about setting him up for what begins 4, 5, 6, and 7, which are what we call core hours. Now, the pelvis, the hips, are the king of the body. If the pelvis is not in alignment, the body will never be in alignment. So 4 is working from the legs up in a deep fashion to begin to align the pelvis. 5 is deep belly and chest that aligns the pelvis from above. 6 is coming in through the glutes, deep hamstrings to align the pelvis from posterior. 7 is the head neck. Now, in order to put, in Rolfing, we use the phrase, put the head on. Now, putting the head on, there's no sense in doing that until the structure is balanced underneath. So once we're finished with 6, many times if you were to look at a person, they're like moving their head around. It's no longer comfortable, and usually it's too far forward on the body. And so the 7th hour is simply we put the head on. So we move it back up on top of what we call the shoulder yoke. Now we have alignment. This is the end of the recipe. 8, 9, and 10 are what we call advanced hours. Advanced hours means that they're just totally different for everybody. It's usually one half of the body, the other half of the body, and then maybe joint movement or whatever's going on, but it's completely individualized. So in working with clients, even though we're following a recipe, everybody has different bodies. So we go about it in a little different way. So the recipe is only necessary to be done one time. Once it's done, changes will go on with the body anywhere from 6 months to a year. And then afterwards, people will have a sense of alignment, of balance, and it will feel good. Now, let's say 2, 3 years go by and they have an accident. They slip on the ice or they fall, and then they get a little bit banged up. Then they come back. If they come back right off the bat, usually one session, we can take care of it. If they wait 1 or 2 months, then they'll come back maybe for 3 sessions, because the body does this thing called splinting, which means the fascia will tighten up around the area of injury, so the mobility is decreased, and this is part of how the body heals. However, once the body and this becomes the issue that needs to be addressed. So, it's all, after years of doing it, it's quite simple. In the beginning, it's quite challenging in some ways.
But you get to see it. Now, when you've done all this, so you've done all the Rolfing, et cetera, how do you, and you see people are still not there, and then it's something either emotional or spiritual, what do you do then? Is this where the Reiki kicks in? Is this where, you start looking at entities? What happens then?
Let's start with Reiki.
Okay.
I've studied a number of, let's just say, energy modalities, and Reiki was one of them. When I was a brand new Rolfer, I had an office partner who was a very gifted healer, and she told me that my work was too physical. And I really didn't know much about energy. And because back then I thought, once you know Rolfing, why do you have to know anything else? And so when she said that to me, I took some offense. So I realized there's something that I have to learn. So I went through the process of becoming a Reiki master teacher. And I taught Reiki for many years. And and it's a wonderful modality. Now, what happened? So what was the second part of your question?
No, so when you've done Reiki, so now when you look at the person, you've done all the physical work, because somehow you can't get everything in physical. So then usually there's an emotional component or there's a spiritual component. Because we talk about repatterning and, there's something deeper than just what the physical body is showing. So where do you go from there? Because you're intuitive, so you know that there's something else going on. What's your process with that?
Well, first, in the physical experience of Rolfing, it can have major, major psychological effects. Not just physical. It's far more than that. So many things come up. Now, there's a wide variety of things that I have received training in. So it's such a wide deal. Like I say, I taught Reiki for years, and so if there's a psychological aspect, then I would of course address that, and I would go. Usually, breath will be involved, or there's sometimes, like, for example, a Rolfing session is an hour and a half. The actual Rolfing part of the session is about an hour. The other half an hour is talking. People like to talk, and that they'll come up with some different things of what's going on or what's bothering them. Now, what happened is entities is a completely different deal, which I'll talk about in a minute. But what happened is, so I would teach the Reiki, and I would, teach class individuals. And then what happened is someone mentioned dowsing to me, and this was possibly 15 years ago. And so while I had been teaching the love and the light and the healing for a long time, and it was very nice, I was drawn to dowsing because dowsing, it works with what we call the dark side. Now, the dark side is just simply what we would call a non-beneficial energy. And there's, many different types of these non-beneficial energies. Now, so what happens is, so I went along with Susan, and we learned this, and I was so drawn to it because I realized all of us in our state of being, we have the beautiful love, light, and healing inside of us. However, a lot of us have blocks. We have obstacles. We have opinions, values, belief systems, energetic patterns, cellular memories, and that get in our way. So once we identify those and we remove them, then the love, the light, and the healing of our being shines out. So I found it to be far, far more effective with a client for an hour and a half, and just simply identifying and removing these blocks, we can change a person's life. And so I kind of stopped teaching. I'll still give an attunement if somebody asks for one specifically, but instead we started teaching and dowsing. Dowsing has the ability to go to the core, and this is where entities would come in. Mm-hmm. We have a protocol. Actually, we have a list of like 65 questions. We've never gotten through all 65 questions ever. Because what happens is someone comes for dowsing, and we say, okay, we have what we call a baseline that we establish to see where they're at, the energy level of their house, the energy level of their personal energetic field. Okay,
can we stop before? Can you explain what dowsing is for people who don't know?
Okay. Now, most people, they relate dowsing to
finding water.
That's not what we do.
Okay.
We have our success has been maybe 50%, so we don't lay claim to that. Dowsing, now, we use what's a pendulum. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason we use a pendulum is a teaching tool, and we use a chart. So we're working in dowsing, we work in 3 dimensions. We're in 3D. 4D would be where entities, or what some people would call ghosts. 5D is what some people would call heaven. Now, we're in a sea of energy, always. And in dowsing, we have developed over time, Susan, Rugesh, and I, we work together. We're a team. And we've developed what's called subconscious grid work. And so we sit down and we establish a base. And then what's your request? We can douse just about anything that you can possibly imagine. And one of the fun things about dowsing is we say, now listen, during the session, if anything comes to your mind, however abstract, however off, whatever it is that you think, tell us, because that's going to take us down an avenue that we would never expect. And so in the dowsing, people usually come and they'll say, I've got this problem. And so we start dowsing it. We have a specific protocol and questions to ask. And like I said, we get very quickly to the core. Now, one of the fun parts, most of the time, is sometimes we'll get a skeptic. And usually it will be a spouse of, let's say, one of our clients, and they'll drag their husband in. And so the husband, they'll sit down at our table, and we can tell in 10 seconds, he doesn't believe a thing that we're doing. That's okay. So we'll start dowsing, and more often than not, within 20 minutes, the skeptic will have tears rolling down his face, and he'll be looking at us saying, "How in the world do you know that?" And this is what dowsing does. So this is one of the beautiful things about dowsing, is we say, whatever you've got going on, tell us, and we'll be happy to douse it.
And when you say douse it, like, what do you do with that? I don't understand. I've never been doused, so that's why I'm asking.
Okay. So we sit down and we will use our pendulum and a chart, and we will start out by saying, what is the energy level of your living space? And we get a number. Now there's a certain range that we want it to be. And if the number of the energetic level of your living space is low, then the dowsing in all likelihood is not going to be that effective. So dowsing will work with any belief system that a person has. We use the terms spirit guides, spirit doctors, and spirit worlds. But whatever a person's belief system is, then that's who you pray to. Dowsing will work. So we start with the living space. If it's low, then we raise it. And we raise it, and the pendulum, let's see, basically we'll go clockwise. And we'll raise it, and then when we're done, we recheck. Now let's say we bumped it up a good level, and so we're happy with that. Then the next step would be the person's personal energetic level. Now, if a person's been sick or they're depressed, it will be low. Usually we can tell that. But
And are you doing numbers like 1 to 10 or 1 to 100?
Well, for the house level is 26,000 to 30.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a big difference. Okay. Uh-huh.
And these are just numbers.
Uh-huh.
To say 26 to 30, you could say that. We just use 26,000 to 30,000. Now, for a person's energetic level, we want it to be 20,000 to 26,000. We always want our personal energetic level is 26 to 30. Our house level is 20 to 26. We always want our personal energetic level to be a little bit higher than our physical surroundings. So if they're low, then we use the pendulum. We say our mantra. Now, here's our mantra. Our teaching for dowsing comes from 4 generations of Native American shamans. Now, while we have made a good number of adjustments and slight changes in the way that we work, we have never changed the mantra. And the mantra is this: we banish the spirits, deactivate the life force, neutralize the energy, and scramble the frequency. Now, this covers all bases. Now, everything has a frequency. Everything has an energy. Energies are strong enough that they have what we call a life force. The strongest energy of all is a spirit. A spirit has never been in 3D physical body. But if somebody has a diagnosis of cancer and they come to us and they say, "Well, you check," then yes, it has the energy. Does it have a life force? Yes, it has a life force. Does it have a spirit? No. So that means it's really not that strong. Mm-hmm. If it has a spirit, then it's strong. Now, an entity is the strongest energy of all besides us. We got the physical body. An entity is, well, some people would say ghost. An entity is someone who passes over, and for whatever reason, let's say they built a log cabin in the woods, and they love their log cabin. They don't want to leave it. So when they pass over, they stay there. And then that people would say that that log cabin's haunted. And it's just simply an entity that's in the house. If a person's on their deathbed and the family's all around, and they're saying, "Please, please don't go. Don't go. You know, we here." Now, the person on their deathbed feels so bad, and feel so guilty that they stay. They pass over and they stay. And I can share a story about a suicide that we worked with yesterday that was really a fascinating experience.
Whoa.
Because they always go to 4D. Suicides don't go to 5D. And we just had a fascinating session yesterday with suicide, which, if you like, I'll share.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Well, one other thing. Let me finish with the baseline, and then I'll get into it. And then the final thing that we check is frequency. Now, lots of times you'll hear people say, I want to raise my frequency. Well, there's different types of frequencies. So the frequency that we work with baseline is what we call the mental emotional frequency, the body level frequency. Now, ideal, it's very low. Let's say you come out of a nice deep meditation, the frequency might be 3. Most good average people walking down the street have a frequency of about 21. So we checked in. A lot of people, when they start a session with us, they're a little nervous. They don't know what to expect. So the frequency would be a little high. If a frequency of the body level was to get up around 30, then the person would have indecision, their problems are developing. A frequency of about 40, we don't have to douse. You can see there's trouble. Frequency of 70 is somebody who's not able to actually function in society. So that would be our final baseline. We would work with that to lower their frequency. Then we would begin with dowsing, and usually the first thing is entities. Now, so yesterday, I'll share this story. The results were quite profound. So let's see, it was a female client, around our age, I guess, 60 or something, maybe a little younger. And her brother had committed suicide in 2007. Now, this particular client had some suicidal tendencies herself, but no longer. And so she asked us if we would look at them. Now, as I said before, suicides, I won't say never, but they don't go to heaven. They go to what we call 4D. And so, there's going to be some time that's necessary in 4D before they're able to evolve on. So, and 4D can also be people who are lost, people who have no belief system, children who are killed in a sudden accident, and they don't know that physically that they're have transitioned. They just don't know that, and they're just lost in 4D. So there's all different types of things that can exist in 4D. So with this particular person who committed suicide, 2007, we check, and because she thinks about him all the time. Now that's an indication that a person's in 4D, and she still is visibly emotionally upset and connected. Possibly, she has a psychic cord with the brother, and so we check. Now the brother is indeed in 4D, and so now just because we ask, this is important. In dowsing, we never ever do anything ourselves, ever. Yeah. Who it is that we pray to do the work. Now, there's 2 reasons for this. The first reason is we're protected because we're asking who we pray to. They do the work, so we're protected. Second reason is always we end, and may this be for the highest benefit of everybody concerned, because it removes any of our ego out of what we might think is best, because we don't know. The other side knows more than we do, so we put it in the other side's hands. So with this particular guy, we always ask permission. May we, can we work with this? Is there any reason not to? Now, we do this before every session. We ask permission, because we will always get the question, can we work with somebody without getting their permission first? And our answer is dowsing is a prayer. We're just saying a prayer for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
If the person doesn't like the prayer, then they don't take the prayer. That's all. And so we don't need permission to give a prayer for somebody. They don't like it, they don't take it. So now we ask permission and we get to go ahead. And we would use the term from his higher self. So what we would do in this particular instance is we ask his sister, now tell us somebody who he loved and he trusted that has passed over and is now on the other side. And so she comes back with his mother. I said, okay, fantastic. So we will ask our guides to go into fifth dimension and locate the spirit of his mother. And the pendulum will do a clockwise fashion. And it will go, and then once it locates the spirit, it will say, yes, we've got the spirit. It could take 3 minutes, it could take 5 minutes, don't know. But the pendulum, is just an information gatherer. So the pendulum says, yes, okay, we have the spirit. So then what we do is we speak through our guides to the spirit of the mother. And we explain what it is that we're asking for. Because we're going to ask her now to step through the veil of fifth dimension into fourth dimension. And when I say third, fourth, and fifth dimension, first, it's not just 3 simple steps. There's many different layers in each dimension. So, it's just not 3, 4, and 5. There's many layers in each dimension. So the mother comes through the veil, and many times I'm very strong with my visualization and my intuition. And let me point out, since I brought up intuition, dowsing, one of the greatest benefits is how it will sharpen your intuition. Sharpen it's like unbelievable. Like if you were to do it for 5 years, you'd be coming up with things that you would never even imagine in the beginning. That's how it works. All of a sudden, things come because you build what we call the subconscious grid work. So at any rate, the mother comes through the veil, and she takes her son by the hand, and then there's a dialogue between the mother and the son, and she explains, it's time, and it's time for in your evolution, and for everybody else who is affected evolution, for you to come in over to fifth. Now, the son has a little fear. He has a little apprehension, not much resistance. This is where intuition comes in with practice. And so he takes the mother's hand, and she begins to walk through the veil. And she steps through, and she has his hand, and he stands there, and slowly, now, the permission was given by higher self or whoever for him at this time to go into fifth. That's not our decision. And so he goes through the veil. It's beautiful. His sister, of course, is sobbing. Now, he goes through the veil, and as he disappears through the veil, this visualization comes to me. And the visualization is, if you look at a pond with still water, and you toss a stone into the pond, and it ripples. So now he steps through the veil, and the veil, it ripples like the pond. And then slowly, it just calms down and is just completely still again. And so for him, he had spent his time in fourth, and it was time for his evolution into fifth. So this can be for him, not only for him, his mother, also for the sister. This can be a life-changing experience. So this is just one of the things that we can come across. And for Susan and I, there's times that we have to look at each other and say, we need to be a little bit slower and softer with what we're doing here, because for us, we do it all the time. and we forget sometimes the effect of what we're talking about with people's lives. And so we, occasionally we have to back off a bit and say, we got to remember what we're doing here. For us, it's like normal stuff, but for other people, it's like this life-changing events. So,
wow.
Yeah, and we just stress that for dowsing, anything you can come up with, we can show you how to douse it.
Wow. Huh. That just kind of took me on a journey there. What's interesting is actually yesterday I met a woman whose son had committed suicide, and she was celebrating his life in she could chopped all her hair off and dyed it orange because that was his favorite color, and that was her way of honoring him. And it's funny, I asked her, I said, have you gotten help? And she said, I am, but you still see where there's a need for more help. So this might be an option for her. Wow. Whoa. Okay. So again, how can people find you for any of this stuff? I mean, this is really cool stuff. So some of it you can do online. Can you douse online? Like, can you do a session with someone dowsing with Skype?
More than 90% of our work is done on Skype.
Okay, great. So, what is the website that we can go to check it out?
The website is crystalmountainhealing.com,
Mm-hmm.
and and we do both groups and a lot of individuals. And then, we teach several seminars, workshops, or retreats a year, usually small, no more than 20 people, depending on the space, sometimes maybe 12 people. And, but it's fascinating, to work with. And so it's, I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. And what are the next workshops that you have pending? Do you have that?
Yes, we have a workshop in London in June
Mm-hmm.
10th. And this is a 2-day workshop, and it's aligning to your soul's purpose. And it's at a friend's house, and she's on the outskirts of London. There's a place in London called the College of Psychic Studies.
Mm-hmm.
I did a presentation with her Spirit Doctor team there last year, and I'm helped out a bit. And then we've been invited back to do another one there. And then we have one that we're, for the first time, here in Cuenca, Ecuador, which we're really looking forward to. And it is being divine. I can never say this word. Anyway, it's a small one, and it's from the 23rd to 28th. Now, we have a place in Cuenca, and it's a retreat, and it has thermal waters. It has fantastic food. Our favorite place that we go to, a few times a year, and this is the first time that we're doing a retreat there, and it'll be fairly small. We won't take more than 12 people, and it will be. There's so much. Let me see. How do I say this? There's so much thought that we give to locations.
Was that the divination one?
Yeah, both.
Yeah. Okay. Uh-huh.
Because it sets up such a nice atmosphere. And we were going to do the one here in our little town of Vilcabamba. However, the travel here is tough. And, plus, if you don't speak Spanish, that makes it even a little bit tougher. So we pick Cuenca. It's easy to get to. Everything's set up. The van picks you up at the airport, and it's just it's just so much easier for everybody. So we're really looking forward to that, for that particular experience also.
Do you have to be a dowser, or can you come there as a non-dowser?
We have we have done a series of like 3-day retreats on housing. And we also did one on disconnecting from the matrix. But the dowsing, for this particular seminar, we asked that a person purchase or listen to the beginning level of dowsing, because in the beginning, it can be overwhelming, because it's almost like it's a new language, because there's lots of people who use words, vibration, spirit, energy, frequency, and there's so many people, they have different definitions of what those mean, and we're very specific about what those mean. So we ask that in order for people to attend, that you listen to the beginning, a beginning 3-day event, so that at least when you arrive, you understand the verbiage that we're using, so that everybody will be starting with what we call an intermediate level. Now, this is so much more fun than teaching a beginner level, because people will have questions, because in the beginning, there's so much information given that people won't even have questions. But as soon as they leave and they begin to do a few things,
Nice. So, okay, so you have that one, and that one's July 23rd through the 28th.
yes.
And that's in Ecuador. Very nice. I know, with the thermal springs. Nice. That's the beauty. And that place must be, I've never been to Ecuador. Have I? No, I've never been to Ecuador. I have to think now. Where have I been?
It's very high in the Andes.
Mm-hmm.
In Cuenca, it can get a bit chilly at night. I believe it's around 8,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we do one day during the retreat in Cuenca is there's about 45 minutes away, there's a park. It's called the Cajas. And there's about 270 natural lakes. And there's a beautiful restaurant. And it's a famous location, because it's where Mother Mary was spotted. And there's a sacred fountain where the water bubbles out of the mountain. And people come from all over to fill up their jugs for this healing water. And there's llamas that are running all over, and it's really quite beautiful. And so we have arranged for one day that we go up there just as kind of an outing and spend the day for walking around, for food, for going to the sacred site.
Mm-hmm.
And
the energy must be really awesome there, no? Because you've got the water too, the lakes and the mountains.
It's fabulous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that must be awesome. Wow. Well, I can't wait to talk to you in the second hour, because then we get to play a little bit more of your encounters with, different things, different types of entities that you've come across, and how all these things really affect us on a soul level. And I know a lot of it, for me, what I've seen is a lot of it is generational. And, I'm glad that you brought that up about the differences, because my idea of frequency and what you were talking about with, like dowsing and frequency are two different things. And, with dimensions too, they're two different things. What I knew for other modalities and what you're speaking about with dowsing are totally different.
Well, the frequency that most people are talking about when they say I want to raise my frequency, talking about megahertz.
Mm-hmm.
This is a measurement of physical health. Now, a lot of people, when they talk about frequency, what they're really talking about is vibration, but they'll use the term frequency, and different things. And as far as stories about entities, I can share one or two that will be mind-blowing.
We'll talk about those in the woo-woo hour. Yeah, we get to play in the woo-woo hour with all that. Wow. But I love what you do. And can you give us the website again that people can check it out?
Sure. It's crystalmountainhealing.com.
And that has also has all the information about the workshops that are coming up, et cetera, and how to get in a hold of you for sessions, right?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, sounds great. I'm excited. This is really cool. Cool stuff, Sven. And thanks for the explanation about all the different modalities. I think that's where it gives people a choice. They're like, oh, well, this is why this does this. And of course, I would love to have a Rolfing session with you if it doesn't hurt like that.
Well, you're in luck. We have a beautiful casita here, and a private kitchen, a nice big workroom, a nice bedroom, and you're certainly
Great. Yeah, I mean, it was great when I was finished, because one of the funniest things I remember, the sensation of feeling the ground. When I walked, I could actually feel my feet and feel the ground and feel where my feet hit the ground. It was just a weird sensation.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it definitely reconnects you. But wonderful. So again, thank you, Sven, so much for taking the time out to be with us. And I can't wait to have you on the Woo Hour. And thank you all for listening. This has been very informative, and it'll help you on your path of, as we say, getting rid of some of those patternings that we have that have actually manifested in our physical bodies. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Thank you for listening to Boundless Spirit Radio with Charlene Springer and our awesome guest, Sven Carlson.
Boundless Spirit goes off the rails. Next up in our members-only segment, the Woo Woo Hour. Whether it's happening on the planet, off the planet, or inside the planet, host Charlene Springer, expert guests, and you dare to go there in the Woo Woo Hour.